have. You'll be told this by Milestone, but we just want to let you know that we are recording this because the idea is we want to be able to share the information with the people who are not here, although I am impressed with the turnout tonight. And I'm glad that you came out on this evening to hear about the project. So for people who can't be here, I'm sure you'll let us know where we can find that video so that you can share that link and people can get on and be able to see more information about the project. And I believe that's it. Again, my name is Michael. So if at any point along the process you have a question, you're uncertain about the procedure, or just let me know and I'll be sitting up front here. You can come over privately and talk to me. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Len Forkas from Milestone, and he'll lead us through, and I'm going to be keeping a clock on this presentation so that it goes 20 minutes.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay? Great, thank you. My name is Len Forkas. I'm the president of Milestone Communications. I started the company 17 years ago, and I am so pleased to see so many people come out tonight and be here to exchange information. The whole purpose of tonight really is to hear your voices and that we can be a resource to you and answer every question that you ask regarding what we're proposing, why it's needed, what the issues are, so that we can hear from you. And that's what tonight is all about. I would like to introduce a few folks with my company. This is Matt Penning, who's the project manager. He's going to be speaking a little bit about the process of sharing information on the internet about the project. Also, Greg Stewart from Anne Arundel County Public Schools is here. Greg is the senior manager of planning and works with us through every step of the development process, from the initial selection all the way through construction. Elizabeth Dietrich in the purple here. Elizabeth is with Network Building and Consulting, and she provides zoning guidance to the project. And then also Kevin McManus is Kevin. He's with a company called EBI Consulting, and Kevin is an RF technology expert. And can answer questions regarding safety and radio frequency engineering. And on behalf of Verizon Wireless is Joe Galindo, who's here, and Joe is representing Verizon tonight. So I'd like to kick off by just giving you a brief outline of what we're proposing. So in a nutshell, here's what we're going to go over tonight during my presentation. We're going to talk about what's happening in the wireless industry, our program with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. We're going to talk about the site selection process, why this site was selected, and also about the outreach process in terms of how we communicate with the neighbors and stakeholders in the community, both the school community as well as the neighborhood. We're going to talk about the appearance of the project, what it's going to look like, as well as answer questions regarding wireless safety. So hope you all can see the slides clearly. And again, as Michael mentioned, 20 minutes, and we ask that you hold your questions until after we're done presenting, and then we'll open it up to the public so we can hear your voices. And as a part of the process with Anne Arundel County, I mean, we take the community input process very seriously, and that's why we wanted Michael to be here to make sure that all voices are heard tonight, and that we create a safe place for everyone here to be able to understand what we're doing. You know, there are more wireless devices connected to the internet than there are people, and 80% of people in the United States own a smartphone, which means they have a portal to not only the internet, but to so many rich and crazy tools. And you think about how vital and how important our wireless devices have become and the role that they play in our environment, because more people now connect to the internet through their wireless device than to computers sitting at their desktops. And people want their phones to work. And in fact, when you look at order of priority, it's ranked, having good wireless connectivity in your community is considered one of the top 4 things people look for when they're looking at becoming part of a community. The other element, which is equally important, is 911. 70% of the 911 calls made in the United States, and even more so here in Anne Arundel County, are made through wireless devices. And part of the reason for that is because 50% of the people in the United States have cut their landline, and their only connection through voice into a phone call is on a wireless device, and that is continuing to trend upward. But more importantly, all of our first responders have wireless devices, computers, tablets in their vehicles. First responders rely on a vibrant wireless network to be able to gain critical information as they make their calls. So again, good wireless connectivity is a critical component of safety in our communities. But the problem is that the stress on the networks has never been higher. The amount of data flowing through wireless networks has tripled just in the last couple of years. And part of it, and most of it really, is being driven by video. People are using their devices now, not only to call, not only to text, not only to send emails, to send photographs, but they're using them now as entertainment tools. And you're seeing the cable companies, they're losing coverage, they're losing market penetration because people are using wireless devices now to connect to entertainment. And that is what's causing the stress of the network. And just look at what happened when Verizon and AT&T went to unlimited data just a few months ago, matching Sprint and T-Mobile. The amount of stress on their network has never been higher. And the other thing is that voice used to be on a separate network. Remember when we didn't drop calls, but all the voice now is digital and it's treated the same as data. So if someone is streaming a video, it competes with voice, whereas before it was segregated. That's why we're dropping more voice calls as we travel from point A to point B, and that's why, again, the stress has never been greater. And Verizon has chosen this location because they do the math on where they know they need service and they need to enhance coverage for people in the community. We have over 20 school partnerships in 5 states. And we have built over 100 towers, half of which are on school properties. We've been doing this for a very long time. The questions that you're asking are the same questions that were asked of us 15, 17 years ago. They're all the same issues with respect to radio frequency, radio energy. And the reason that the school sites tend to be very good sites is because they're large. They're places where we can design the location of the tower where it will blend in with the environment. Because let's face it, everyone in this room will agree that cell towers are ugly.
How can you even say that?
And that's the problem with cell towers.
It's a bunch of crap.
Can you hear me, ma'am? I'm sorry, can you hear me back there? Okay, good. So cell towers are ugly, so we try to find locations where we can design them in a way where the visual impact will be lower, and that's one of the reasons why this location was selected. So I'm going to ask very kindly that you not raise your voice, and please give me permission to finish my presentation on time so that I can allow everyone here in this room to be able to ask their questions. So that's the purpose. That's the purpose of the reason, one of the reasons this location was selected. The program that we have with Anne Arundel County Public Schools is effectively a revenue sharing program, identical to the majority of the programs that we have. When we build a cell tower, 40% of the revenue that our wireless carriers pay go directly to the school system. We pay $20,000 when the tower is built. We pay $5,000 for each and every carrier that locates on the tower. And over the course of time, in our 17 years, our experience is between 5 to 7 years, we average 3 carriers per tower, which means this tower at Shady Side will, over time, generate roughly $40,000 per year and roughly $500,000 over a 12, 14-year period of time for the school system for this one site.
And $20,000
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you very nicely, sir, to please allow me to finish.
$20,000 for our elected officials.
Once again, I'm just going to remind you that I would
$5,000 to this man right here.
Excuse me, I'm going to remind you that you're going to have 2 to 3 minutes of uninterrupted time. One second, ma'am. Ma'am.
Steve Shue, money.
I'm just going to remind you.
Mike Bush, money from Milestone.
You have the time to make your comments without having interrupted.
Mike Miller, money from Milestone. And Jerry Walker, money from Milestone.
The candidates may need to be respectful. We're outlining a process. We give everyone here, everyone in this room, not just you, sir, everyone in this room a voice. And so we're going to ask you nicely to be kind enough to please respect. So
that's where the money goes.
All right, listen, folks, I've stopped the clock because we promised 20 minutes to hear the presentation. After that, we want to hear from you. So if we keep shouting out, we're not going to get to the other, people are not going to have an opportunity. We promise we'll give you,
answer our written questions. We had written questions, you refused.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that's the program. We've built 5 towers so far. The towers we've constructed. I think our battery's dead, man. So do you advance the slides for me?
See you.
So the first tower we built was in 2013 at Broadneck High School. We built sites at Cat North, 2 sites at Annapolis Middle School and Magazine Middle School, and our most recent tower was built in 2016 at the Corcoran Middle School.
It's not time for the children. It's not time for the children.
At the Elementary School is Hebron Harmon. We're proposing a tower at Hebron Harmon as well. Okay, so you're here to ask questions, I'm sure, about why this location. And so let me give you some background as to why this site was selected in terms of the location. Now, in Anne Arundel County, we must commit to a 200-foot setback from every single property building. And so, in order to meet 200-foot setback requirement, you have to have a relatively good-sized parcel. That's why this parcel was an attractive parcel for us to pursue.
How do you build in the wetland?
We have a very transparent process with respect to working with the Anne Arundel County School Board. It was identified on the school agenda. It was also a meeting that was held with the elementary school in Shady Side Elementary School. And we're proposing a 114 monopole that will be located on the property. Now, let me go back here.
Did they give it to you?
This is the coverage map. This is the coverage map that shows the coverage objective for Verizon. There are two towers right here. You can see, you may be able to see the red dots, one here and one above. Those are existing tower facilities where Verizon has antennas. And so they cannot properly serve the Shady Side community with those two facilities. And that's why they propose a tower at this location, because it's dead center in where the hole is in the network for Verizon. So they want to make a capital investment to install infrastructure on the site, and that's where it's proposed to go. I would like next to introduce Matthew Penning, who's our project manager, and Matt will talk a little bit about the community outreach process and how we went about identifying and notifying the community.
You canceled 2 weeks ago.
So we're going to talk about that. Important part of our development process is community outreach. Once we have a proposal for a site, we vet it internally and then also with the county public school system. We vet it through them, and then we also bring in the school leadership at a later time to talk about the location and make sure it's not interfering with future use or future school development or anything of that nature.
In your backyard. Speak up.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
How can the paramedics land there now with the cell tower?
Okay. To that end, we're going to cover the next couple slides.
The vice president landed right where the cell tower is going. But he can't do it now, can he? Nor can the
I'm going to
paramedics.
start with the website that we create. This is something that sets us apart in outreach. We create a site-specific website. It's basically a portal for the public to go to before and after the community
You did this
meeting.
deal in 2012, so why are you talking now?
And so this website link is shared, you know, when we do our outreach and also when Anne Arundel County does their own outreach to notify the school community. So
Why was it newsreaded without anybody knowing
Right on the
it?
door when you canceled.
sorry.
Hold on one second. Folks, these are all good questions, but they're being
They're
wasted.
not going to be answered, and your talking's not going to do any different except for run the time to 9 o'clock.
If you want your questions in, first of all, if you're a part of an organization, you're trying to influence people, is that correct?
No, I live across from the cell tower. Lived there for 30-some years.
So the point that I'm...
In writing.
You didn't answer the
One
questions
second.
you submitted.
And even these questions in writing aren't the right questions. Why didn't it get approved in
You're trying
2012
to
to the
influence the
people?
people here to your side.
you are. You
And
have the
you're-
microphone.
And you're not doing a fair job.
You're just
I see a lot
wasting the
of
time to
people-
run the meeting to 9
A lot
o'clock.
of people who want to hear
20
information.
minutes is up.
And I've stopped the clock once again because you're not giving the people an opportunity to present. We want to hear your questions. We will hear your questions if you sign up. And
I signed it up. You took the sheet. It's gone.
Well, we will call you up to ask your question, but for now, let's finish the
Talking about an
presentation.
outreach process and we ask questions and you refuse to answer them, so I think that's
Let's
not
let the
outreach.
information come out. and
That's a
then
good
the
question she can ask later on when the 9 o'clock's
Answer
done.
why he won't answer the written questions. Len,
All right, well, we're going to
answer
move
why
on
you
to
won't answer
talk
the
about
written
Wait,
outreach that
hold
we
on.
did.
Let's just wait.
Let's have Len back.
Let the time run out. It's like a football
Let's
game.
have
He
the
can get it
president
done.
When he gets quiet, we'll
Len,
start
take
again.
the microphone. Why won't you answer the questions?
When he
in
gets
writing?
quiet, we'll start again. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think his problem,
I
why
hear
he's so
silence.
upset, is because we were told as a community, if we had questions, to email you. And you didn't respond to those questions that should have been answered prior to this meeting. So we're waiting for those responses. I think that's part of the reason why people are so upset. Just a small part, but part of the reason. And you're having a meeting in the summer.
All right,
when
so,
you notify the student
Len, would
body.
you like to answer that question if it's
Or
going to
the
get us back
neighbors.
on track?
Let
This
the
is about,
president answer.
the question
Yes,
is about,
absolutely.
Questions in
So
writing.
the answer to the question that you're asking is, there were a long list of questions, and they look very familiar, because many of those questions were identical to the questions that you asked on the Roosevelt High School site in Greenbelt. So,
We don't live in
yeah.
Greenbelt.
So, again, there are a lot of issues that deserve proper questions in the proper venue and the proper environment. And we believe that the proper environment is this meeting, so that we can answer the questions. We're here. We're here, and we're here to answer your questions. So I don't understand many of the questions that people ask are on our website. There's very, very transparent information about what's proposed. But all I can say is, we're here tonight, and we're here to answer your questions. If you'll give us permission to please finish
There are a
our
lot of people, hold
presentation.
on 1 second. There are a lot of people that don't know both sides of the story, so if you would give them the respect to finish what they have to say and show us, so that we are all educated as you are on this topic, then we can open it up to the rest of the people.
Hold on, let me
sir,
say
do you
that.
agree with what was just said?
No, I don't. No, I don't, because we don't need a salesman drive from you guys. We got questions, we don't need the 20 minutes. The information, there is none.
And
This is
shame on the
bullshit.
school board because they've already voted on that.
This was done in 2012, it was
They've
done.
already voted. Shame, shame,
Can we,
shame,
Come on.
shame on it.
can we have a show of hands for how many people would like to hear the rest of our presentation here? So can we please just proceed? I know you have your questions, we will hear from you. We promise? Okay, we will hear from you. Thank you.
Okay. In review, we set up a project-specific website. This is a portal for people to come who might not know about the project and want to learn more. There is a contact form on the website. Those emails come to us. We draft those questions. As it's been noted, we try to address those and incorporate that into the presentation today. So I'll try my best to get through to those. So what Milestone does to notify people of the project once it's become a concrete proposal. So a lot of our proposals, we get a lot of inquiries from carriers, and not all of them get converted 100% into sites. So after it goes through this initial vetting process, and it's become more concrete proposal, then we reach out to the public to inform them of the proposal and of this meeting so that people can talk about it. So one way we do that is through direct mailing, so we mail postcards to people. The requirements, you might not be able to see it on the slide too well, but there's only 19 required by the county. We expanded the area to be 0.5 miles, so you might be able to see the difference there. We're notifying more people in the surrounding community. I'm gonna hop back, and the school notifies. The school system notifies the school community. They released a press release via the school website, the news website, and they also posted on the Facebook page. All of that included the web link, the date of the meeting, and then subsequently they did, I guess, robocalls or blast emails to the school community on August 1st and August 7th. And the bottom of the slide show the success rates of those efforts on both those days. So they're both above 85% on calls and emails on both days. So appearance, before we met with the school leadership to further vet this, we flew a balloon in the approximate location of the tower and from the approximate height of the tower to show what it would look like in the community. For the next couple of slides, I'm going to go through some views in the community where it's actually seen.
You don't live next door?
Maybe not. Okay. Here we go. So photo simulation map. The maroon arrow points to the cell tower. You can't really see it too well in that one. Another view. Another view. That's in front of the school. And going back, I thought this might be a helpful slide, is the proposed location where we're showing here that's the location of the tower. The blue square is the compound around the tower, and then the gray road is the access road that comes in from, I believe that's Atwell.
We don't dig it out of the wall.
Where's the tower on that road?
Where's the playground? Where's the tower?
No, this,
How far out?
Oh, yeah.
Where
is the playground?
so that's, so here, this
Where's the
is
new elementary school?
the
new
tower.
kindergarten?
The location of the proposed tower is approximately 350 feet further away from the school and the playground.
There we have a new kindergarten.
This little hash marks object shows the new addition to the school, so it's more than 350 feet away
No
from
way, there's
the
no way.
playground and the addition.
What are they going to do, cut down the woods?
So we went through,
You didn't take a picture
Blue
from my
flies.
house.
Like a direct shot.
I'm convinced.
and pass it back to the and talk about it.
Thank you, Matt. So we're 350 feet away from the school facility in dense woods. Most of the trees are approximately 75 to 85 feet tall. The tower is 118 feet tall, 114 feet tall, so it's slightly above the tree line. So we think that from the photo simulations, by the way, which you can find on our website, which is Shady Side ES. I'm sorry, Shady
There's a
Side.
light on top of it.
ShadySideESWireless.com is the name of the website. All the photo sims are there, including photo sims that were taken where you can't, even in wintertime, you can't see the tower. Over half the photographs we took, you can't see the tower in the wintertime. So the technology, so we've got an RF expert here that will answer questions regarding RF safety. But in the end, really, for those of you that haven't already formed an opinion on radio frequency energy from our cell towers is the same as the radio frequency energy from our phones. It's the same as the radio frequency energy from our Wi-Fi routers, cordless phones, and baby monitors. It's all the same form of radio energy. And the amount of radio energy generated from our facilities is de minimis. In fact, it's so small that it takes very expensive equipment just to measure it accurately. And if you look at the food chain of wireless devices as to what the amount of radio energy, the most amount of radio energy is generated from our own phones. And then second only to that are home phones, or wireless phones in your home, and again, baby monitors, Wi-Fi routers. And once you're inside a building, just the simple wall of the building and the glass of the building is a huge filter of radio energy. And again, the amount is so small that it's almost very, very difficult to measure without very expensive equipment. I put my faith in organizations that monitor the health safety issues associated with radio energy. The FDA, the National Cancer Institute, the FCC, and the American Cancer Society all have opined, all their scrubbing the research is done every single year to determine whether or not there is reason for harm, or reason for cause for harm. None of those have been proven. There's no credible evidence that shows that this radio energy causes harm to anyone. And so in summary, I'd like to conclude, and then we'll be happy to answer your questions at the microphone. And again, consumer demand is why we're here. We're not here because we dreamed up the idea of putting a tower at this school. We're here because Verizon and other carriers have a problem. The problem is your phone service is not going to be functional without infrastructure. The problem is your 911 calls are not going to go through. The problem is you're going to be paying your wireless phone bill and your phone is not going to work and function as optimal. They're making a capital investment to improve service here in the Shady Side community, and others will follow. Again, over the next 5 to 7 years, there will be more wireless companies. If you don't have Verizon service, this is going to be a location that has capacity for up to 4 wireless carriers at this location. And there's only 4 wireless carriers that provide service in this area. And so with that, I guess I didn't finish my summary here. This is a great location because we can minimize the visual impact, because we placed it in the center of a forested area away from the fall zone of a tower and has very little visual impact. There's benefits to the school, and why shouldn't there be benefits to the school? Why shouldn't the schools have the opportunity to be able to drive benefit like the other 5 towers? And finally, we're going to increase 911 coverage to the community. So with that, did I make my 20 minutes, Michael?
We're at 18:45.
18:45, we have left time for you. So Please, if we have a sign-up sheet, I'm going to call
All right,
my...
so here's what we're going to do. First of all, I want to thank all the people, even though you have different viewpoints, withheld your voices just so we can do the presentation. It's very much appreciated. I do want to let you know that I do have the sign-up sheet so far. We kept more back there, so please keep signing up. And this is just a way of prioritizing, folks. We'll try to get in as many people as we can. Can we just say, let's do 2 minutes a person for now, and then go, because there are, like, let's say now 12 people, and we know that there are a lot of people here tonight who might want to speak. And person number 9 on the list said, you should ask if anyone from the audience wants to speak. And of course I will. So we could have many more people who want to do that, and you hear something that's said and you want to ask a follow-up question. But two is not enough, 2.5? Let's do 2.5 per person. If you still have a follow-up question, go to the back of the line and we'll see if we can get everyone there. There's no reason why you can't ask more than one, but the idea here is to hear from everyone. If you don't want to ask a question, you got your 2.5 minutes, you can then have the microphone to yourself. I won't interrupt you, and I'm hoping that other people in the audience won't do that as well. Is that fair? Sure. Okay. Yeah, question first? What is the question? Oh. Well, I want to go by the list, if that's okay. But if you want to get on the list, that's fine. The first person I have is Mike Shea. If you have a question for the Right, let me have your attention. Okay, so let me just tell you the first 3 speakers so that we're ready to go, so that we don't have any downtime. After Mike, we have Kent. Is it Neshel?
Guest order.
Okay, is Kent here? And then the next person is Carmen Scarluca. So Mike, Kent, and Carmen. So if we could just have the first 3 people ready to go.
If they can't take the buzz out of the PA system, how are they going to do an antenna load? But let's start with shame on Milestone. Shame. Shame for not answering the questions that we gave 3 weeks ago. Shame for them when we sent it in 2 weeks ago and they repeatedly didn't. Shame on them for making political contributions to damage our democracy. Shame on the county councilman that took that money. Shame on the school board. Shame on the school board for voting to approve it before the public meeting. Shame on the school board for voting for a 5-year renewal contract before any renegotiation or public input. Shame on the school board for that. Shame for not renegotiating the whole, so that Milestone is not held harmless. Shame on them. Shame on Mike Miller for taking Milestone money. Shame on Mike Bush for taking Milestone money. Democracy works when we have input to the people that we elected and the school board that will be elected in the future. They are going to hear about it. We're going to go to the county council every week. We're going to go to the school boards. We're going to take these signs that our children made. And maybe Len will realize that this community took out $1 million developer and a $1 billion corporation. Milestone is this big. Thank you.
The next is Kent, if you could just come right up. And then after that, Carmen, and then Lisa Taylor Soriero.
I need to talk to the audience. I need to talk to you. Okay. You all put this thing in 2012.
I'm not trying to talk to you. You all put this thing in. You all put this thing in 2012. It was passed in. It was shoved down here. I live directly across from this piece of property. It's 9-story. With this equipment, you could have put a picture of the cell phone tower and showed us exactly what it would look like to it and sold to people that shit. And it's not going to work out. The 25 grand you spend a year in there, 10 years, you could have bought a piece of property and put it out of your way and got it out of our way. if cell phones aren't bad and if the signal's not bad on it, why can't you use the cell phone at the gas pump when you're pumping gas? Okay, you're going to come up with the RF stuff and sell these people this stuff, but it's not proven. Every one of the high-line towers, people's property value, cars going to value, and they're going to customers. You say inside the building, the school kids aren't a problem. What about outside in the playground? That's about all I got. Can't talk.
Carmen is next. Is Carmen here?
Yes, I'm right.
Okay.
I'm not show and tell. I'm right. So I'm going to put this down here, just so you all can see. This is Wells in Anne Arundel County. If you know where you are. Okay. Do you see how many wells are down here?
Carmen, yeah, we can't hear you in the mic.
She had to show her visual first.
Now we're going to hold it up.
There is no direct benefit to our children, our school, these residents, this community, our county, nor our environment. If you haven't noticed, we are South County. What we treasure here is not cell service. How many people in this room have Verizon cell phone service? Are you satisfied with it? Thank you. We don't require your tower. We are comfortable with our dead zones. No, but we are going to in fact, the greatest risk opposed that we are facing with the associated construction of this tower is actually the subsequent buried 500-gallon diesel fuel tank. And who on the county approved a buried diesel fuel tank in this low-lying, wetland, critical area with precious resources in a woodland area? Not only a woodland area, this is a wellhead protection area. This is a source water protection area. This is a colonial nesting waterbird area. This is a forested protected area. This is an androgynous spawning fish area. Words I haven't even heard you mention the impact to this watershed, the wetlands, the birds, the things that we value here, the wildlife. One more thing.
Go home, man.
In addition, this area is surrounded by wells. And these wells are highly susceptible to saltwater intrusion, attributed to the low-lying area of South County. If you look at sea level rise projections, this area, Shady Side, is not going to be here at the end of this century. You have chosen the highest level in this area. However, it is unreasonable to bury a fuel tank
Okay,
above our
we're at
property
2.5. We're over 2.5 minutes.
contaminating well water. We need to document every wellhead protection area in Shady Side that you are getting ready to decontaminate and establish what the water quality is right now before you drill one piece of our property. And how many trees are you getting rid of, by the way? And what is the tree replacement
Thank you
scenario?
very much. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to your I want to thank you for your question because I think it's really important. It's really important for everyone to understand exactly what the impact will be, because there's no plan or intent, or ever will be a plan or intent to bury anything under the ground. In fact, the generator that's used by Verizon and other carriers is to make sure that when the power goes out in an emergency, that people have data, have wireless information. So when the power goes out and people's internet goes out because their broadband connection goes dead, they can turn on their phones and their phones will function immediately because of the generators are located on the site. The fuel for the generator is encased inside a sealed, double sealed container. That these are very expensive generators that Verizon uses, because Verizon is a Fortune 50 company, and they take the environment seriously, very seriously, because of the potential for the facilities that they operate to make sure that they're safe for the environment, and they're not going to be intrusive. So with respect to anything associated with anything underground, the only thing that will be underground is the foundation that will support the tower structure itself. And so, and also with respect to critical area, the reason this site was attractive, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, is because this site is outside the critical area. Most of this peninsula is in the critical area. We're outside of that. We're outside of that area. We're not in wetlands. We've avoided wetlands, and that was the purpose of selecting the part of the property that we selected, was to make sure that we didn't impede the environment. So I want to thank you very much for your question and for bringing it up.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lisa, and then Grant,
What is the fuel for the
and then John
generator?
Earl. So Lisa is next.
If you'd like me to answer the question, if I may, Michael, may I answer the question? So yeah, it's a follow-up question. So the follow-up question was, what is the purpose of the diesel fuel?
Now, we know where is
Yeah.
the diesel fuel going to be stored on the property?
I'm sorry?
Where is the diesel fuel going to be stored?
It's inside. So I'd love to take you to one of our facilities over at Broadneck High School, over at Maggie Middle School, over at Canton North. The generators are about the size of this table. They're a little taller, and then inside the generator is a tank. It's a double sealed tank built inside the generator. It's completely enclosed with a metal housing to make sure that no water, rainwater, or corrosion goes into it. And that's where the diesel fuel is housed. And by the way, the diesel generator only needs to go on long enough to charge up the batteries for the system, because they typically run on batteries. So the diesel generator is not running all the time, even at times of a power outage. So I hope that answers your question regarding the purpose and the reason and the type of generator that we're proposing. Now, please be respectful for the next person on the list. We'll get to that, and we'll continue answering your question.
Where's Lisa?
Lisa?
Is it underground?
It's above ground. There's nothing below ground, ma'am. Thank you for that. There's nothing below
Lisa,
ground, except the foundation, concrete. Is Lisa here? Lisa, you're up.
And after Lisa is Grant.
Here's my question. I'd
I'd like to see documentation that this radiation is proven safe. I've seen studies, mostly industry-funded studies, that say it might be safe, or it's probably safe, but I've seen a lot of other studies that say it's looking more and more like it's not. And I've even seen a guy presenting to the World Health Organization, saying something to the effect that it shouldn't be only a 2B carcinogen, but it should be bumped up as more dangerous to a 2A carcinogen. That concerns me when I have my little one coming. So that's my first question. So yeah, I'd like to see documentation.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you for asking that question, because you're talking about the safety of children. And everyone here in this room feels the same way, as I do, and everyone on our team. The safety of our children is the most, nothing comes second, nothing comes above that. And so the safety of our children, and so the answer to the question is there have been studies done over 30 or more years. And all these studies have been evaluated by the scientific community, and there is no credible evidence from the organizations who I put my faith in, like the American Cancer Society, the National Cancer Institute, the FDA, the FCC. There is no credible evidence that shows that there's any that this causes harm. And so the World Health Organization, made a statement that linear energy is a possible type 2 carcinogen, like coffee and sunlight. So the reality is, possible type 2 carcinogen, I don't know what that means, but all I can say is that there's no credible evidence that proves that this causes harm.
I could actually show you plenty of studies that weren't industry funded that say and suggest that this is actually not safe for children, not just for cancer-causing things, but a million other things. So I can show you those studies, and I'd be happy to inform, apparently you just like to cherry pick which ones you like to read. But since it's obviously unclear right now whether it's safe or not, I'd rather keep my kids safe. I know you'd rather that as possible, but I'd rather keep my kids is for the representative from the board. Who is that? That's you right here. My question is, why weren't anybody informed about what was happening with the vote on renewing these guys' contracts? And how did they get such a great deal from you guys? That's I don't understand. I mean, they're like making out like bandits here on our children's health. So I would like to know why no one was notified that something that was so controversial, and you know everyone that you try to put up at any school, it's been fought tooth and nail. So you know that the parents who have to send their kids to school don't want these things in schools. So why is that? Why weren't we notified of that vote? Also, why is this meeting being held during this summer?
Yes.
A lot of parents had no idea that this was going on. Your little successful robocall thing, if it goes to an answering machine, it says, check, we let them know. But a lot of people are on vacation. A lot of people just don't check with stuff like that. I mean, it's just not fair. People aren't as involved during this summer. And
How come you voted on it already?
Where's the transparency?
I don't understand. So if you can answer those questions.
Lisa, yeah, let me ask you a question. Why don't we stop and get answers to that? You still have some time left, but we don't want to forget.
Yeah. Well, first of all,
Oh, I have an image right here that shows, he just handed me, it shows that it is in the wetlands area.
Our lawyers will determine
we study it. We thought we disagree. We have engineers that maybe the physical, because of the size of the plant is that small, but we have our engineers say, if our engineers missed it, then we have to have a sit down with them. But to answer your question, answer your first question regarding, if I can respond to your question, Miss, may I answer? Can I respond to your first question? And I think you asked a question about why they renewed our contract. And because there's a provision in the contract that facilitates renewal, but more importantly, we have 20 partnerships. We have 20 partnerships in other municipalities, and the common denominator of all the partnerships is the economics. They were all relatively the same economics. So we didn't get a sweetheart deal from Anne Arundel County. We got the same deals we got in Frederick and Prince George's and Wycomico and Queen Anne. And then to answer your other question about why are we meeting in August, right? That's another question, and I can understand. I can completely understand why people might have concerns about a meeting in August. The fact that I see so many faces in the crowd today makes me feel less about having a meeting in August, but we work 12 months out of the year. I mean, we work all the time. The need for new infrastructure doesn't stop in the summertime. And that's the reason why we're videotaping this. May I please answer your question? The reason we're here is to capture the information for those folks that can't be here. That's why we built the website and why we put it out for everyone to see weeks in advance so people can see the information well in advance of this meeting. So that everyone in this meeting can see what we're proposing, what it's going to look like, and why it's needed well in advance of the meeting. And that's the reason.
I want to know why the residents of Anne Arundel County, not just Shady Side, Anne Arundel County, why we weren't notified that the board was going to be voting on this issue. I would like an answer from you, not from you, because I'm a little tired of you.
As far as the 2012, that was a competitive process, and Milestone was chosen. That contract had a renewal clause that we could extend that contract. That is what's called a master lease agreement. I'll try. All right, is that better? Yeah. Start over. So the master lease agreement, Milestone basically entered into agreement with the school board to market our sites, all of our sites, not just Shady Side, the entire school system. And since 2012, the agreements of that, which basically has a one-time siting fee. And then on top of that, each additional carrier we get paid, basically another one-time fee. And then we basically earn 40% of the gross revenues, which is very consistent. Actually, it is consistent to every contract that is signed with all other municipalities. And we even found other power companies
The
that
other
allow.
counties don't have them built on elementary schools. They have stipulations saying that these cannot be built on elementary schools because elementary school children, their little bodies absorb more radiation. It's just not right. Did you take that into account?
2012 when my daughter went to Shady Side.
All right, let's,
Hold on, let's go
let's
back.
let the answer.
So if I can finish. So the master lease agreement basically allows them to look at all the sites. And then the way the process works is each individual site will, for example, if Verizon says they need a tower for coverage, and that's, the only reason they're here is because the carriers have an issue with coverage. Milestone doesn't do it, Verizon or Sprint or AT&T. When we first started this a couple years ago, first tower was Verizon came up and said Broadneck, they needed one there. Next one was an AT&T and the next one was a Sprint. Just happened to be those, we had 3 different carriers, and the way it's done is every time they identify a site, they would come to us or actually come to me, and I look at it to see, does it fit on the site? Are there any future plans that we have to basically build a new school, for example? And we look at the long-range plan. I look out, what's in our 10-year CIP. We look at our overall inventory of how old's the school. So we basically vet it to see, does it make sense? Can it fit? And, not all sites, I can tell you right now, there have been quite a few sites that I have said no
I don't feel like you're
to.
answering my question, though.
Well, you asked me a question
Renewal
about
of the
how.
contract without
As
the public
far as,
knowledge.
well, the public had an opportunity, it was put out, the renewal, basically it was a 5-year contract. And they were,
Which expired.
which was expiring, it hadn't expired, it was expiring in, I think it was July. We renewed it. And,
Without letting anyone have a say in it.
I'm sorry, but our public process, the board,
Public's not
that is, the
involved.
public is invited, everybody that is put on our board docs, that is posted, we are
And
very
again,
transparent.
something that's so major during the summertime, when
Hold on, you're
people
mixing up,
aren't checking your...
hold on, stop. You're mixing up 2 things. There was a master lease agreement extension, then there's the actual site. And the initial site that was on June 21st, which was Shady Side, that was the
I'm
first.
talking about all of the little towns.
Hold on, you're mixing up 2 things. There's the overall master agreement that was extended. Then, in June of this year, we did show to the board, and again, I think Matt sort of touched on the process. So let me go back to the overall process to help you out.
So, wait, so you didn't renew their 5-year contract and extend that in the past month?
We did.
You did?
It's been, hold on.
Why weren't we
You were
notified
notified.
before
The
that?
public is notified on anything that goes before the board. It is.
How were we notified? Prove that we were notified. Was there a
Yes, there
robocall
is.
about that?
There is an agenda item, and it was just like every item that goes before
And it
the
didn't
board.
look like anything different than who you're contracting out your plumbing to. So unless we had some direct knowledge of what was going on, it's sneaky.
No,
It's very
no,
sneaky.
You're
It's
mixing
crummy.
up. There's 2 things. The master lease agreement
Yes.
covers all the schools.
It's absolutely crummy. No, I understand. There's 2 different things.
But you keep blending them together, and you need to separate.
Because they both suck. Okay? I understand.
I think the
No
issue,
transparency.
I think
Nobody
you-
was told.
I think the issue is that there's a sense that whatever came before the school board was not made known to them in a way that would encourage attendance.
The public was part of the process.
So,
Let me
so
explain that.
if you could just cover that, please.
Keep in mind, what happens as far, let's go back, I started to talk about process. So Matt touched on it, and maybe you didn't understand how he said it.
Don't talk down to us.
I'm not talking down, I'm just trying to explain. So when we go through the vetting, and again, I'm the one who's initially vetting. So if we think it's a viable site, My first meeting I have is with the principal of the school. And we meet with the principal just to see, make sure that's the initial meeting. Milestone comes in, they introduces themselves, and we talk about the process. That is, and again, that is the board policy that we are following. We have a regulation that we follow that the board adopted, and I'm following that basically policy and regulation on how we manage these cell phone towers. So step one, well actually step two. So step one is vetting through me. Step two is with the principal and Milestone to talk about it. Then there's a step three, which we introduce and bring out one of the board members for the first time. The board has no knowledge of it. And we bring out the PTA president. And it's basically initially just to see, you know, what kind of reaction.
In the public meeting,
hold on. Would you hold it back there, please?
No, I appreciate the support. Thank you.
So the board on the 21st, the first time the entire board heard about even this project was they knew, it was put out, notice, and at that point, it becomes a public process. So we basically notify the board. The next step is to notify the public. We are here. This is basically the
You've already
first time.
voted on it.
They have not voted on it. There's been no vote for this thing.
7-0.
No, there's no vote on it.
That was
It's a
the vote.
review item. They did not vote on it.
That's not.
So this
So
is
this
not
is-
set in stone?
This is not set in stone. This is part of the process. What we're
So
trying to
if
do right
we're
now is
saying here tonight that we don't want this, you will go away?
what happens with this process, not necessarily. This is part of the process. We're trying to get input back to the board. What they're doing right now is they're taking meeting minutes, they're putting down all your questions, all your concerns. We disseminate that in a report, we give that to the board. And we go back again, probably in September, and say, you know, here's this project. We went out on public notice, we received all these public comments, and basically at that point, the board decides if it's going to be going forward or not. So nothing has been voted on. And then if the board says, yes, it's a viable project, and it moves on, they then can hire the engineers to go out and survey and do the wetland studies and the floodplain studies and all the tree stuff that you're talking about. Whatever they need for a building, they still have to get grading and building permits. They have to go through all the regulatory process. So nothing is done. This is the beginning of the process.
All right, so the last, if you don't mind, I'd like to get to the next question, but I'm going to ask you a question I think you're going to like. When this is held in September, will the public be let know that this is going to be on the agenda, and is going to be addressed?
We know about it now.
We'll make sure that on our website, we put the date and the time of the meeting for the school board on our website. So please check in on our website to find what the date and the time of that meeting will be held.
All right, I want to mention something quickly. First of all, Grant is I believe, the next speaker. But I am missing the sign-up sheet that starts at 16. I found a couple of people who said that they signed up, and I had them sign on the bottom of this one. So please look around. If you see a sheet lying around, please bring it up to me, because I hate to have people not register. I've also moved the sign-up sheets to this table where it's a lot easier and it doesn't get confused with the other paperwork back there. So if you still want to speak, please come up and sign up. Frank?
Good evening. Sorry, my name's Frank. I want to preface this first with, I was a firefighter for 13 years, never in the military. My foremost concern is safety. I have a 6-year-old daughter that's going to that school next year, first grade. I don't care about consumer demand. I don't care about cell phone signals. I don't care about any of that. I care about my daughter. That's all I care about. So the first question is, both of you gentlemen, and maybe the gentleman from the school board, is this could be a little bit of dialogue if you want, but how often are these cell phone towers serviced and maintained? And to segue into that, are these people that are going to come work on this tower near where my daughter plays, are they vetted? But I mean vetted, I mean background checks, are they sex offenders? Do you guys even look for that? Did you guys take that into consideration while building these towers?
Okay, so thank you, and again, we all care about the same thing. We care about the safety of our children, to make sure the property is managed safely, and that every person that steps foot on that site is required under our contract with Verizon, with any other carrier. They're required to provide 24-hour notice before they go to the site. They are legally required, pursuant to the lease agreement with the corporation guarantees, that every single person who goes on that site has to go to the office and they have to show their ID at the check-in, and they scan that ID, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they scan their driver's license, they get all the information with respect if they're on any list of sexual predators or any of that information. It comes out in their systems. So they're vetted in that regard. They have to wear identifying clothing that shows what company they work for, whether it's Verizon or one of the consulting companies Verizon subcontracts with. But again, 24-hour notice prior to access. Once the tower is constructed and the equipment is located on the tower, the engineers will come out to the tower periodically as needed to make sure that the equipment on the tower is managed and functioning properly. Each carrier has their own schedule as to when they do that. It's really up to them. But we don't determine or monitor when they come in. They contact the school and they have to give 24 hours notice.
I guess that's my question is, as the owner or the proprietor of this tower and the owner of the school board, you just said you don't really keep track of these folks. It's kind of on the carrier of the school board. I mean, I need assurance that these folks aren't coming in and there's a registered sex offender. We don't catch it. Someone takes a kid off the picture. You know, that's a big deal to me. The other thing, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my questions out real quick. You guys can answer in succession. Weather related, we get a lot of hurricanes here, a lot of nasty weather, a lot of wind, right? How are these things, how safe are these? I know it's within a fall distance, you know, it's 350 feet from school and all, but how are they rating for hurricanes, for instance? The other thing is transparency. I mean, I know you guys come up here just preaching transparency, that's great, that's awesome. Jerry McGuire said, show me the money. So, what proof do you guys have over here that this money that the school was taking has benefited any of these schools, let alone my school, my home, because I can care less about blah, 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 I care about cities. I'll go ahead and sit down, that's all I got.
Thank you. So we're dealing with the money question first.
Let me start with the safety of the children. That's most important. We require, again, like Len said, anytime any contractor, again, whether it be Milestone or somebody working on HVAC, on our schools, roofers, everybody that comes on the school site, that comes in that door, as far as especially contractors, administration is supposed to scan their licenses in the system and hand them a badge. If they are flagged, they are rejected, and basically administration is notified that the sex offender basically had tried to get into this school. So it's we take that very seriously. Well, hold on. On the property, again, if there are contractors working on the site, we require basically any contractor that is there. We don't necessarily, I'm going to tell you, we do not check delivery drivers, for example, somebody in a dump truck dumping a load. Those guys are not checked basically with their equipment. But anybody working on a site and anybody who's there for an extended period of time, we typically do even a 30-day pass. So they'll be, because we have construction like right now, Shady Side's getting the kindergarten edition. Those contractors do 30-day passes. So that crew, when they're on site, they scan them, and then they're required, whoever shows up on that job, the foreman is supposed to give a list. This is who's on the job today.
Will the cell phone tower site be considered to be on school ground?
Yes.
Therefore, it falls under the
Yeah, and I can tell you that we have 5 of these towers installed, and of the 5 that have been installed, every time Milestone is sending out their vendor, whether it's to check on the equipment or just basically whether it's maintenance or to look at it, to do anything, they always notify me, and I always notify the school to say these people are coming out to the school. They know, they always check into the office. The only time I can see it being where maybe they wouldn't be there, like you said, during a hurricane, during a severe weather event, if they had to come out, most likely the schools are going to be closed, and they're going to be out there to probably check the equipment for, maybe the generator or whatever, make sure things are operational.
Was the fire department considered in this, and any public safety and emergency management, all that stuff, were they all considered in this whole process about having the tower built in their first due? Like, company 42 considered into this? And did you have to have register as a hazmat site, since we have diesel fuel tanks in your buildings, potential hazmat incident? Or the fire department never consulted any of this, or like the police departments or the emergency management?
There was a life flight landing zone too.
Well, that's my other point, is that there's limited areas here for like a life flight helicopter land. That was a fire, right? This might be taking up.
Okay, so the question you're asking is with respect to the safety of the tower and the lighting, for flights and so forth. So if you can answer, please. Thank you so much.
Where we're going with this is more for it's safety for the school. It's also safety for the community, right? So somebody gets into a bad car accident here, needs a life flight. Well, now we got to take them down to probably Christopher's to get a helicopter out instead of where we could have just gone right around the corner here.
It's in the woods.
Yeah, I understand. So, I guess my question is, what is public safety engaged in any of this?
Again, this is the beginning of the process. That's a very valid.
But I'm so glad you made that point, because we reserve a place on the tower for future public safety antennas. Every tower we build, we hold a spot available in case they want to extend their network. You asked a question, I'd like to answer it. And I'm so glad you asked it, because about the structural integrity of the tower and the way in which the tower is designed. It's designed for it's designed for 5, the weight and the loading, wind loading for 5 wireless carriers. And so on average we get 3, but it's designed for 5. So we have a tremendous amount of thickness, high thickness steel, as well as deeper, wider foundations to make sure that we have a strong tower that can withstand any form of tropical storm, for example. The standards we have to meet are called Red G, which is over 90 mile-an-hour gusts, sustained gusts. And so, again, the tower is designed to withstand those types of tropical storm winds. But again, the location we selected is 350 feet away from any of the school buildings, 200 feet away from any home, and it's a 114-foot tower. So that's not going to be a risk at all.
So, I mean, a 90 mile-an-hour gust is great, but if, I don't know if you're from this area, but we had the derecho in 2012, right? So the Verizon guy made me answer this. These are the same generators that failed in Fairfax for their 911 system, and had the 911 system down in Fairfax for over 4 hours and missed well over 1 million calls. So my questions are, that's great, it's rated for gust. We've had when we had Hurricane Sandy, we had derecho, and we had a Hurricane 2011. And it's only a matter of time before we have this happen again. And that's my biggest thing is safety.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I have a so the problem they had with the public safety in Fairfax when that came through was not each individual tower, it was the switch.
Yep.
The switch went down. All the towers were functioning. And I can tell you that during Sandy, during the derecho, we have a lot of towers we built throughout this region, and we had damage to no tower. Now, one of our towers was damaged by that. They withheld the loading, they withheld the wind. We didn't have any experience, but we're required by law to withstand certain wind effects based on the international the federal standards, and we meet those and oftentimes exceed those. But you're here too about the instructional integrity of the tower. Thank you so much for your question.
Let me finish up the one question.
There's going to be an answer here, but I also wanted, the next speaker is John. And I also want to point out, and it's John Earl. Is John here? Okay, very good. I also want to point out that a couple people have already come up to me and said, someone asked the question and it was already answered, so can I take my name off the list? So if that's your case, just let me know if at some point. Also, I have all the sign-up sheets here, so if you think you were on that other list, please come up and make sure your name is there, because we want to make sure we hear from you.
Yeah, just to follow up, he had asked about the revenue, what happens, how much money goes directly to the school. The current regulation says the one-time siting fee, 1/3 goes to the school, 1/3 goes to the feeder, and then 1/3 goes to the system. And that's currently how it's set up. And that's
The school or the school board, sir? The specific school or the school board?
Specific, 1/3 to the specific Shady Side Elementary School, and 1/3 to Southern High School, basically the high school feeder system. So again, that's up to the area regional superintendent to decide how they want to do that.
Isn't that where the casino money went to?
John? Right into the mic.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out. Matt, I disappointed that I didn't get a response in writing to my list of questions that I was hoping to share with the community before, the meeting, because it's so hard to learn it all in an hour. You guys do it. You guys work full time in this industry. We're all working hard at our jobs, raising our kids and family, and for us to come out, even for me to be here tonight is difficult. I've got kids sick at home. I've got a newborn baby at home, but I care enough to come out because I do know over years and years of being aware of the dangers. I know about NIH studies from last year that raise concerns. I know that we're not done with the studies. We don't know for sure, but the studies have just begun for us to put a tower on an elementary school until we know for sure. It just doesn't, it's just, everything in my common sense just says this is wrong.
I can stop your clock if you want an answer. Do you want a response?
I mean, fine, but I could probably give you a counter response.
Well, let's at least get it out.
Back and forth.
You're welcome to do that, but let's at least hear something from that.
Sure, fine.
My name is Kevin McManus with EBI Consulting, and I understand that the concern with regard to health is very, very significant. And I think the best way for me to answer that question is to share some information with everybody about the basis for on that slide where we had shown that the American Cancer Society, the National Institutes of Health. Yes.
Have you seen recently they updated their website?
Yes.
They don't have your quote anymore. They have more research is needed, especially in the area of long-term exposure to children.
Yeah.
Yes, and what I would like to do is offer, because I have links to the specific fact sheets that were put out by NIH. There's two of them. There's also one from the American Cancer Society. There's also one that's very recent, 2016, done not in the U.S., but by the British Columbia Centers for Disease Control. For this very reason, because people were asking questions. What do we do? How do we answer these questions? And so they did a very exhaustive, what they call a meta study, where they pull together data from a lot of studies. And this has been, you referred to the one that's ongoing now. That is building upon 30 years of work that's been going on. So what I would like to do is offer it, and I don't think I have a copy for everybody, but I got 45 or so of these. And I urge people to take a look, because these fact sheets are well written. They summarize very well the state of the science as it currently exists.
All right, so
Unlike tobacco.
all right, so John,
It's cumulative.
John, you got your answer for that one. You have something else that you want to share?
Well, I have a question about the coverage area, okay? Now, I'm going to ask the question first before you start talking about the coverage area. Well, if you can get it going from the website that shows the circle that's going to be the coverage area. I understand you're limited to school grounds. I'm sure that you would prefer a site closer to the communities you're trying to serve. The houses, the distance from Idlewild, Snug Harbor, Cedarhurst, Avalon Shores, the distance to those communities from the elementary school, I would say it's not ideal. And the circle you're showing doesn't even reach any of those communities. It barely makes it to the boatyard. And that's my question. So if you're promising, vastly improved coverage, I see from this map, but I don't see from the map you put on the website
Yeah, this is a different map on the website. It's absolutely different.
Okay, well, with respect, I'd like to talk about this map first. And so what happens we've got representatives from Verizon here as well, but effectively, these wireless networks are like organisms. They're constantly shifting and changing every single day. I mean, the worst job in the world happens to be in RF engineering, because every morning you go to work, things got worse overnight. You've never been really what's happening with radio energy. And so when a new site is installed and turned on, the other sites that are nearby all have to change and all have to shift. And sometimes what happens is when a new site, it's called cell splitting, when a new site is installed, it frees up capacity on other sites to be able to direct energy to areas that may not have been within the domain of their power where they were located, where they were providing service. So each and every new infrastructure investment that's made by the wireless carriers creates a ripple effect that has positive impact, not just on that site, but on all the sites around. Now here, we're in a peninsula. And so it's pretty easy, because obviously once you get past the water, there's not a lot of folks that live on the water. So we're here, we're trying to serve the area that's in the blue area, which is the place that is most underserved by Verizon.
So I guess the question is, will the service, according to the way it is now, be served by this tower?
When Verizon makes an investment, or any wireless company makes an investment to locate equipment on a tower, they're committing to a minimum of 5 years, often 10 years, guaranteed payment of lease. So they take that very seriously. They have to pay that rent. They also spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment to mount on the tower. Then they have to maintain it and operate it through the network operating system, the NOC, as well as physically be on the site to maintain it. So it's no...
I understand it's not a small investment. I'm just wondering why the map looks different now than what you have on your website.
Is this a different map that's on the website?
On the website, because you claim all this transparency and this is the place to come and get your latest information, and you're showing different maps completely.
Well, I think this map perhaps may have a higher level of accuracy, because we've located the other towers that where Verizon has
and I know in your contract, you're required to check 5 other towers to see if you can improve without building a new tower?
Yeah, that's always our priority. That's always the priority, is to locate on an existing tower or a rooftop or another vertical structure, of which there are none that meet the coverage objective for Verizon in this particular community.
Okay. Also, I just want to show you that when I simply went to I can't show you now. I simply went to the wetlands for the country. And the picture of the wetlands is that entire forest strip.
I mean, clearly, this issue has come up a lot. I think what's going to happen is we're going to go back to the commission out there.
We'll respond back to you. We'll respond back to you and follow up on that.
While we're on that topic, I just want to let you know that meeting minutes and information from this meeting, things that have been discussed, can be sent to you. And of course, you can forward it to others who are not able to be here today. All you need to do is put, your emails on these sign-up sheets. I'll leave them here at the table, so you can do that as well. I'm sorry. Right here. The next speaker.
I have one more question about the diesel generators. How often are they turned on?
Yeah, the diesel generators are tested. They're tested remotely once a month. I believe they run for 60 minutes to make sure they're fully functioning. You go through all the necessary checks to make sure that they operate. So it's once a month on a planned time, so that it's not intrusive to the...
I would say 2 weeks.
Melissa, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to mention that if you want to sign up for more information, I'm going to collect a list and inform the community, because I do live here, and I seem to be able to get the information out better than
Let's sign up.
And the next person is Theodora. Is that Theodora here? Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay? Thank you. Jean's actually my wife. I'm taking her spot because I have to go get our kids. Thank you guys for coming. I completely understand Milestone's position. It's a good business plan. From the Verizon perspective, I pay a lot of money to Verizon, as a lot of people in here do. I definitely don't want worse cell phone coverage. I definitely don't want, lapse in the ability. I just don't think necessarily that it has to be mutually beneficial. I also like to pay less for gas, but I don't necessarily want that on the kids' playground. And I don't know, I'm not a wireless expert, I'm not a communication industry expert, but there's clearly enough doubt when we don't take our time. And with our kids, the one thing I'm not really willing to do is take risks, right? And you mentioned, sir, that coffee and exposure to sunlight is the same level of carcinogen potentially as what the documentation is now. I don't give my kids coffee, and I put a lot of sunscreen on them. And I'm not trying to be funny. I take, as we all do, the fact that any risk, it's a dangerous world, right? And we're just trying to prevent any risk we could, because who knows what's coming at us. From the question perspective, I have is maybe more for the school board, and I don't have the particular piece of legislation or the actual part of it, but there seems to be kind of a rumor or some information going around that the liability has been accrued by the school or the county, and that Milestone Communications is held harmless or has released some of that to the county, which is a taxpayer certainly a concern. So maybe you can speak to that. And then secondly, back to Grant, who I believe may have left, on the issue of checks and background checks. Obviously, I'm assuming there could be 24-hour access to these sites that are needed for maintenance.
24-hour access only in the case of an emergency, like when the power goes down, but that's the purpose of having a generator, because the only reason that they need
I understand generators.
Generators, they don't need to rush out to turn.
What about third-party vendors? Are those included in any background checks?
Again, with respect to the 24-hour, 24/7 access to the site, they have access to the site for only in the event of an emergency, and then they have to follow up with the schools as to who was there, when they were there, and so forth. They have to go back and report when they were there as part of our lease agreement.
Okay, but so third-party vendors that come at 2 o'clock in the afternoon don't access it through the main door of the school, that come around from the Idlewild side, the proposed access side. Are they obligated to show?
Yeah, they are. We have signs in Spanish and English right at the gate before they can open the gate. There's a sign that has a list of all the rules and regulations. And the first rule for the school sites is they have to turn their truck around and go over to the school administration building and sign in at the school administration building during office hours. And they're not permitted on the site in non-office hours unless it's an emergency, such as a...
Okay, but they're not escorted after. Once they sign in, the same as anybody, just a signature and their ID that they...
Well, they have to present their ID, and they have to go through the system, and the system checks, has evidence of who they are, what time they check in, and the school has...
I'm not too familiar with that system. Maybe you could speak to that, because I'm pretty familiar with some different criminal investigative systems. I've never heard of one that you scan your driver's license and you're instantly back in. Thank you again for your time. I yield the rest of my time.
The system we use, we call it the Raptor system, and basically it goes back to, I think it's not either FBI, it basically stands for any kind of criminal activity, and we've not had any problems as far as I know with it not working.
Yeah, that's why you have so many pedophiles.
Well, this is the first cell tower in Anne Arundel County, so how can you have the
As far as the liability question, the hold harmless is basically, it's Milestone is holding us harmless, is what I would.
The paragraph in the master agreement after the insurance clause, our lawyers have looked at it. Anne Arundel County basically assumes the problem that Milestone is.
You don't even know your contract.
You read the master agreement.
You don't even know the contract.
Well, we have, are you done with that? Did you mention the liability issue? I'm sorry.
We need our lot.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can you answer that? Can you answer? You don't even know the contract.
There seems to be a discrepancy as to who's holding it. It didn't benefit Milestone.
Does Milestone know the contract? Nobody's answering.
It's the paragraph after the
Answer?
insurance paragraph.
Well, obviously there may be some questions regarding that. What I'd like to do is take a closer look and look at that provision. And if there's any discrepancy, we'll have a conversation about that. Please communicate with us. you know how to get through to us on that particular issue. I do know this, that, we insure the tower.
You know what it is.
So we have general comprehensive liability for anything that happens on the site, as well as during construction and so forth. We demand certificates of insurance for all our contractors that go on the site, that name the schools and additionally insureds. And we do our best to make sure that every person that steps foot on that site for construction purposes has, that their organizations, as a part of our contract when we do installations, that they name the school board and the school system on their insurance policy. But we'll look into that and we'll get back to you on that, and we'll be responsible with respect to those.
Thank you. Can we go to
So I'd like to add to the liability issue. Verizon Wireless and actually most all wireless carriers in their 10K, their filings, and also their annual reports actually warn their shareholders that they may incur risk from lawsuits related to radio frequency radiation, and they let the people, their stockholders know that there could be a risk. Some of them say if the law changes. There's also a lot of lawsuits, of course, moving forward on this issue. But I really think it's important that children and parents be informed the same way that there may be a risk and we're not sure. In fact, Swiss Re, Lloyd's of London have all issued reports saying this, compared this to asbestos in terms of the possible risk that this could turn out to be for the company financially. So I'm here and had some questions. Actually, I have a question I really want you to respond to.
Okay, I do want to respond to that question because I want to make sure I'm respectful of you.
Okay. My question is, none of the questions, there's a lot of questions that I've asked that haven't been answered. They still haven't been answered, and it's been a few years now. So one of my questions is, how often do maintenance people come to the tower? How many times a year? Because you have not answered that, and I'd really respectfully like an answer. And I'd like to include the carrier. Remember, if you have 5 carriers on a tower, that's 5 companies bringing their maintenance folks. So tell me how often they come to service these towers.
Well, first I'd like to answer the other question, which is the issue associated with liability and with disclosure. So you should understand that in every single lease that we sign with Anne Arundel County Schools, we have a provision in our lease agreement so that if there's ever a risk or it's conclusively proved that wireless energy causes harm, we take action. And we have the same responsibility with our carriers. We take action for that. So that's the number one thing I want you to understand.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
Respectful? That says that if it's proven that it causes cancer, which it likely will
Causes harm.
Causes harm, that then you would take the tower down or make it be below whatever the number is. This does not address the risk from all the years of exposure. Are you addressing that? Because wait, I want to say one other thing.
Good.
As far as I understand, insurance companies don't insure for low-level electromagnetic fields. They group it as a pollutant. You have to buy special insurance if you want coverage for low-level radio frequency radiation. Do you have that insurance?
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned electromagnetic radiation because it's really de minimis. And as you may know, that to power a tower, it's the same electrical service as a single-family home. So the amount of electrical energy that's required to power our tower is very, very low. Each of the antenna panels, 30 watts, maybe 50 watts. So it's very, very low energy for each of our antenna installations. But I think with request to your question, which is the issue associated with harm. We have provisions in our agreement that if it's demonstrated by the government that it causes harm, we have to respond. And that's in every single agreement we've ever signed with the municipality. That if it's proven by the government that it causes harm, we have to act. And so that's the fail-safe with respect to this issue that you're concerned about.
Can we get the answer to the technician?
Oh yeah, technician. How often do people come to service a tower?
Well, each carrier has a different plan for their equipment. Sometimes if there's high winds, they need to send crews out to make adjustments to antennas. So each and every carrier has their own schedule as to when they perform maintenance, when they go out on the site, and for what purposes. So the bottom line is that it's highly variable.
But you know my exact question, which is, if there are 4 carriers on a tower, how often does each one come? Because you have put your tower on a site where you can only have 4 to 5 visits a year. And I have been asking you this over and over again, because as I see it, it violates zoning. So I would like to know, so if you've got 4 people on your tower, and by the way, your master leasing agreement in rental allows 3 cell towers. First is the one, and then you can put another one up, and then another one with very little public process, which could mean 15 carriers, but let's pretend it's 1. How often, are you saying that those carriers will only come once a year to look at their $1 million equipment? I mean, how often?
Tell the truth.
Well, the question you're asking is a law that's not enforced here in Anne Arundel County. The question you're asking is the law in Georges County.
Yes.
Because there are no restrictions. So I'm here to answer questions for towers that we're building here in Anne Arundel County. So that's the purpose of today, is to answer that question. So, but the answer to the question is, Ms. Corrado, is that each carrier has their own plan. Each carrier is highly variable, and each carrier, I can't promise you or tell you with any degree of accuracy how many times a wireless carrier is going to visit a site in any given time period, because that's not what I do. That's what the carriers do. They are responsible for their equipment. And so I can't answer the question that you're asking.
If I have a lease on an apartment, I know who's coming to my house. And, I live in Prince George's County where you put towers up, and I've been asking you. I am a social worker. I have clients. These are my children. They are all my children. And I would like to know the answer, because I've been asking and you haven't answered. But I'm going to move on now, because I have some other things to say, to speak to. Well, maybe you can answer that.
I'm going to interject 2 things. First thing, of the towers that we've had, I would say less than a handful of times in a year that they basically come out to look at the tower. There are a lot of visits when they are first out there, and when we first start the construction, I'll send somebody from our staff who is meeting with the contractor during that time when there's a lot of activity. We're checking on them all the time. There's a lot of involvement in the beginning with our staff, making sure everything's going smooth.
How often do they come if there's a tower inside of carriers on it? How often would you say they come?
I would say we've only had them up since 2013. And that's that's a couple of years. It's probably less than, per all the towers, probably each tower, probably no more than 10 times. In that period.
You're saying each tower gets 10, once a month?
No, once a month, a year. I know.
10, you're saying 10 visits a year for one tower?
At most. I would say probably less than that.
How many carriers are?
But they're checking in with us. They're calling us. They're checking in if they're coming during the school hours. So we have look, if I had a problem with Milestone and how they were operating on our school property, we would not have agreed to extend their master lease agreement. We would have terminated it. We have a very good partnership. We communicate.
Theodora, I just have a question.
We are communicating with the school. We try to reach out to the community during construction. And let me go back to the second part.
The question was asked and answered. Here's the issue. It is...
I have to finish my question. I'm sorry.
That's going to be a decision. Listen up, please. It's 8:35. It's 8:30. I intend to, if that's what you choose to do. I just wanted to let you know that there are 9 people still scheduled to ask. If you want Theodora to ask the question, that's fine. But we may run out of time for the other people who signed up.
Let's stay later.
I just want to point out that she's had... Well, again, that's the question.
So my question has to do with this.
From around here.
I came because his towers are in my land, and I came to support and to make sure that there's credible information that's here. And what I'd like to say is there is credible information. And then what's been stated...
So here's the thought.
You can't interrupt me.
Well, I think
Let her talk.
Sorry. I have not been interrupted.
Let her talk.
Let's finish your sentence.
She's taking us out of the dark.
Let's finish the sentence, but then I just want to point out that perhaps it's good to bring additional people.
I would like to speak a little bit about credible evidence. The FDA, the FCC, they are not scrubbing for information. I've met with them. They aren't doing anything. There are 20-year standards. FCC limits are 20 years old. And if you remember how long it takes to deal with lead, asbestos, waiting for the government may take a bit longer. Now, other governments are doing something like Russia, China, a bunch of European governments who recommend reducing exposure of children. And what I'd like to tell everyone is the American Academy of Pediatrics has a website called healthychild.org. You can go on it and you can read what our nation's largest group of doctors says about this radiation, which is that it can lead to, and it has been found, headaches, depression, all kinds of other things. And concerning the credible evidence, I have an NTP piece of paper, and it's actually their fact sheet, about the studies they did on radio frequency radiation, which found increased cancers. And what I'd like to say is that the Ramazzini Institute is doing a study using cell tower levels 1,000 times less than what our federal government, all our federal government studies that we've ever done have found an effect. And the Ramazzini study already found an effect at 1,000 times less than what a cell tower exposure is. So I urge you to look at it. It was about Low Berkeley. They haven't released what the cancer findings are. I mean, come on, other people have had more time. I had been trying for a long time.
We did this before by a show of hands.
I'm being interrupted
We
because
want to hear the next speaker.
he told him to interrupt.
Can we listen to other people? The next person around here.
Mr. Otto, I want to say thank you so much for coming tonight. I want to say thank you for being so passionate. 1 second. I want to say thank you for being so passionate about, I know this is a very, very important issue in your life. I know you come to many of our meetings.
And we appreciate
you're very engaged. I want to thank you for your passion. And that's why we have these meetings. We want to have these meetings to create opportunities for people to share their news, no matter where you live. So thank you very much.
The chief of obstetrics at Yale recommends reducing exposure. Please take a look at the materials back in the
Thank you. Jessica, are you here? Jessica O'Kane? Folks, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be really now reinforcing this 2.5 minutes because we have to get through our list. Please understand. After Jessica, we have Jennifer Dwyer.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to commend all the public that came out tonight. It's truly impressive, and it's very shameful on the school system, but it's very intentional that this Shady Side plus the master lease agreement was on the agenda in front of the Board of Education for June. Other than putting it on the agenda, what notification did the Board of Education give to residents of Shady Side that it was going to be on the Board of Education's agenda on June, or that the master lease agreement, which was signed in June 2012, was going to be up to be signed again? What notification, other than just publicizing it and I guess a press release? What other notification did you give these people?
That's why we are here tonight. This is the public.
Okay, but it is also
Process. The process is we have to notify the Board of Education.
This is not about 2.5 minutes.
Actually, it is. I mean, we really have to get things done.
The Board of Education has to know about it. So when the public is sending them emails, they have to know about it. The first step before getting it out to the public is we're notifying the Board of Ed, the rest of the Board of Ed, because again, one of the board members, Ms. Sasso, did come down to the meeting with the principal and the PTA to talk about it. And after that, we then put it out to the board. And the next step is to bring it out to the public, and that is why we are here tonight. So
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the answer. She has a minute left.
But it is just shocking that it's not shocking. It is totally telltale that you're doing this in the summer. That the kids didn't get to go home with their backpacks and the new PTA letter in September notifying them of this. And people could do their research. Well, the parents could know. Because honestly, this is really disgraceful. Okay, second thing. Your master lease agreement you signed in June of 2012, there was only one other competitor, a Florida company. I used to do site acquisition. I know very well this industry. I know all about it. You have a master lease agreement. Carriers are going to go to whoever has the agreement. You're not, at site act, I am not going to go to all the property owners around because they're going to do their homework and realize they can charge you a heck of a lot more. That's number 2, 3, whatever. Your background checks. What are you talking about? You give a driver's license. When I want to be a chaperone, I had to fill out paperwork. I had to watch a sex education video. No one is giving their driver's license, and then you've got to check right away. Ding, 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 their sex offender. We would be a lot better off otherwise, because everywhere I go, I'd be like, check, 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 check. Okay, anyhow, I'm just shocked. I'm going to just say Len and company, and I want to commend you all, because Len and company don't normally come to these meetings. They are scared of this community. You had this meeting set for July. Oh, you got notice that they're not going to take this. So you rescheduled it to now. Shocking, not really. Okay, I was like, no, listen to me. I used to work in this industry. I have friends that are still radio frequency engineers. Can a radio frequency engineer guarantee that no harm will come from this? Because there are no studies that conclusively say that it is totally harmless. Okay? Every time he did it, no RF engineer can guarantee it. My RF engineer friend, who was paid by X, Y, and Z, can't come as an extra. You're paid by Verizon. Do you know what he said to me? I said, Jess, we put it at my school, at elementary school. They wanted to put it 150 feet from the kindergarten playground. Okay? Disgraceful. You know what he said to me? I said, honestly, if you were going to have one at your house, how far away would you be comfortable with it? Because he was like, Jess, blah, blah, blah. He said 800 feet. No closer to his house than 800 feet. And you want to put this 350 feet from the classroom? That is disgusting. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, the next person is Jennifer Dwyer. Can we have Jennifer Dwyer up, please?
I just wanted to ask, seeing as I'm a member of the Shady Side Elementary School kids, what happens if we have to go out on the fire drill? And will we be guaranteed that the school is, that the cell tower is safe for us kids, and we won't get some sort of cancer or anything like that? Because I don't want
What grade are you in?
Fifth.
You're in 5th grade?
Yeah.
Okay. When my son was 9 years old, in the 3rd grade, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He went to a school where there was a cell tower within 300 or 400 feet from his elementary school at Forestville Elementary School in Fairfax County. So if there's anyone that can understand your concern, it's me. Because I'm a parent of a child who had cancer and survived cancer.
So what are you doing?
And I can tell you that there is no credible evidence to demonstrate that my son got cancer from that cell tower. Because the reality is that there's no evidence to show that that was harm. And I believe there's evidence that was harm.
What is your name, ma'am?
I'm Rachel Williams. I was amongst the very first residents to go to Shady Side Elementary School in 1971. At that time, we had to limit our space for playgrounds because when it rains, we flood. We don't have any room at the school to play. This is going to make it much worse. When you take those trees out, I live on Idlewild Road, I walk it every day. We flood whenever it rains and it lasts for weeks. So there is no way that it's not going to impact that school playground, and there's going to be less room for the children to play on no matter where you put that in the trees when you destroy the trees. And please make sure you all sign up at our little sign-up sheets. You can get information in the future. Thank you.
Don't put the entrance on our wall.
Is Jennifer Dwyer here? Are you Jennifer?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. So, I know you talked a lot today. You talked a lot about money and the finances and all this. And you're saying your number one concern is the safety of the students and whatever. But like, let's not get it twisted. Y'all are making a lot of money to be here right now. How much dollars do you have? I know you're going to get paid out of it. But like, how much is it costing your company right now? How much money are you all trying to like make off this deal? They wouldn't be investing in having all you guys here if they weren't trying to make a whole bunch of money off of it. So, how much money is Verizon going to make off of it?
Money or the kids?
So the question you're asking is how much money do we make from building a cell tower on the site?
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, I'm a business person. This is my livelihood. This is how I support my family. This is how Matt supports his family, all the people that work in our team. This is how the wireless industry provides the resources.
How much, Len?
We believe that infrastructure for wireless makes life better for people. We firmly
Yeah, except for the
believe
part
that.
where everybody's getting cancer and God knows whatever
What we're
else.
saying is that when there's better wireless connectivity, our devices work, our first responders have access to the internet, our people that need to call our first responders can communicate. When the power goes out and there's no electricity, our data, we can get to the internet, we can get vital information because our phones are working, and they're working because we have facilities that allow us to function. We believe that our communities are more valuable, we believe our communities are safer when our phones work. People pay for their phone bill whether their service is good or bad. Verizon wants to make an investment to make that better here. They want to make an investment here, and other carriers will do the same. But it can't happen. I wish we could make all this happen without cell towers, because then there wouldn't be any visual impact. But it's needed, and that's how the business works.
It's about visual impact. So, and thank you for reminding me, build it somewhere else. That's actually my number one question is, of all the places in Shady Side, why are you trying to put a cell phone tower in my kid's playground? That way, whatever. Don't put it in a playground. Why are you all going to pick a playground? It's cell phone
So glad you asked the question. It's a very good question. And playgrounds, please listen. You know, let's face it. I mean, you know, where we place the tower, its proximity to the use of the school. We got to make sure that we don't interfere with the use of the school. And that's why we believe this site is a very good location for a cell tower, because it's 350 feet away from any school building, any playground. It's in a forested area with dense vegetation. It will have the least amount of visual impact in almost any place it can be built in the peninsula. We have a 200-foot setback requirement. 200-foot setback requirement is what the county requires. There are very, very few places in Shady Side that can meet that criteria. This happens to be one of them, and it also happens to align with the location where Verizon knows, based on the map, as you saw the other two towers, this is ground zero for the best possible opportunity to create. I understand, but the point I'm making is this. You're asking why I can't go somewhere else, right? You're asking why can't I go like a mile away or 2 miles away? The answer is this is the best place to fill the hole in the network.
Really?
In your backyard.
You can't get more than 200 feet from a building or somebody's property line or whatever. That's what you're trying to tell me?
What I'm saying is that Verizon, I wish I was smart enough to know where Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or Sprint want to go next. I wish I was that smart, but I'm not. Because their networks, like I said, are dynamic, and they're shifting and changing all the time. When I first started my business in 2000, we would get a search area, a ring area, we'd be a mile away. Now, they're an eighth of a mile away, because the coverage objective for the high-speed data is very, very precise. I'm not making up the location. The location is designed. I'm sorry, I'm sitting longer. I apologize.
Last point to the school board, talking all about the deal that they're making and money and whatever. That is not your number one concern either. Your number one concern is doing right by our kids. And shame on all you guys for taking money from these people.
Get them, girl. Get them, girl. Obvious we don't know.
What's your last name? Oh, okay.
The reason we're here.
You spoke.
All right, no, this is my spot. I reiterate my husband's, I don't really care to talk to you. You have a great business plan, but it's to the school. I know it's money, but specifically, what programs were on the budget to be cut that you decided to think that going to put cell towers on school would be beneficial?
Here, here.
I just believe that schools should be in the business of education and not making money. So do you have a list of...
No. It basically supplements the operating budget, which can be used for anything in the school system, whether it's to buy equipment.
Bureaucratic settling! What's more important, money or children?
And the school board decided, because of the county is cash strapped, we're looking for any way we can earn money to benefit the school. And this happens to be has approved it, and we are basically implementing.
You said they didn't vote on it.
They don't vote on it. It's a review item. They voted for the master lease agreement. It's a review item. It's for
And Montgomery County and Prince George's County have put the restriction in for elementary schools. So why is Anne Arundel County again? This was already
It's the
brought up.
money. It's the money. It's the money. It's the money.
currently, all of our schools are marketed by them. We look at it to see if it's feasible. If it works, it basically proceeds forward. If it doesn't work, then it won't move
But you
forward.
can't provide a list of specifically where it goes. I know you said a third goes here, a third goes here, a third goes here.
Well,
but that's
actually,
just like
let me
numbers.
correct that. That was my mistake. It's actually 25, 25, and 50. But again, it was.
You forgot the part that goes to the elected officials.
Well, nothing goes to the elected officials from the school system. Okay, it comes in. We just changed the regulation just recently that allowed the revenue sharing of 25, 25, and 50. And before then, it all went to the system. There hasn't been a lot of money coming in. We're only at 5
So why do you
hours.
believe it is a good benefit?
Because
From
it's
you.
additional revenue that is coming into the school system to supplement what the county gives us and the state gives us. Because in the past few
So
years, the
25%
budget,
of 20,000 just doesn't seem like our students should be an experiment for that kind of money.
and the rest of it is the 40% of the monthly.
Yeah, box stop takes much more money than that.
We know who's going to get rich off.
And I just want to remind you guys, August 23rd is the next school board meeting, and again, they're coming up to the elected officials, so vote.
And you get to talk there too.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Jessica.
And we had to pay for our entire playground that's in there. We raised the money ourselves, school board and.
All right, folks, we have about 4 speakers left. So if it's all right, I'd like to hear from all of them, and let's make sure, and I'm going to call up the sign-ups if that's all right, because we want to be sure to get out on time. Jerry? Thank you.
I'm trying to beat the radiation thing to death already, so I'm going a different direction. Following what she said about finances. You talked about finances, you talked about finances. The school board, from what I read in the paper, is top-heavy with management. Not very efficient, and here you're out looking for other revenue when we pay tons of taxes to run the school system. And if you guys can't figure out a way to find cuts in the overhead at management level, we're nowhere on that side. How much I live just on the other side of the woods where you're going to put your tower. What kind of lights are you going to have on that thing?
Thank you.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because the Federal Communication Commission requires that a tower be lit if it's over 200 feet, so there will not be a light on this tower. It will not be lit.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, how many sites have been rejected that you guys have tried to build compared to the 20 or so you said you had?
How many sites have been rejected?
Yeah, now, would you say you have about 20 now?
Well, we built over 100 over the course of 15,
So in the
16
grand
years.
scheme of things, how many times have you been rejected?
Less than 5%.
That'll change. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Derek. Is it Derek Harris? Parkin. Thank you.
So I'm about a 15-year resident of Shady Side, actually live just down the road in South Harbor. And I sent my daughter to the elementary school. And I just have a couple of questions. Trying to listen to everybody, and one of the, you mentioned that this would probably be one of the ideal locations, and it sounded like it's picture perfect. And considering it's such a hot button issue with the community, I'm just wondering, what's your second one on the list, and would it actually help you meet some of the requirements that Verizon or other carriers have?
Yeah, so the question you asked was, what's second on the list if this site doesn't go forward?
Second, third, whatever. I'm just thinking, since this is so difficult location, you're needing a lot of resistance from the community. What other locations have you looked at, and what other locations are possible? It might not get you the perfect location, but will give you something without putting it in a place that's going to cause such a reaction in the community.
Okay, well, thank you for your question. I appreciate you asking the question. And, well, first of all, I think we agree not to agree about the quality of the location. So we think it's a good location. We think it meets a lot of the objectives of low visual impacts and good coverage. But it's really, like I said before, the RF engineers that work for Verizon are the ones that decide whether or not a site goes forward or doesn't go forward. Right now, this is the primary site. This is the location that they've selected for the tower. So I'm not the RF engineer responsible for the brain. In many instances, if you go to Mount Vernon in Fairfax County, there are a lot of places where there have been proposals and they just don't go forward. They just don't provide the service because there's a specific location that they target to meet the coverage objective, and they can either do it or they can't. So I can't guarantee or even opine as to what Verizon would do next if for some reason decided not to go forward.
Yeah, but it sounds to me like those limitations are actually more related to the engineering, to the actual RS signal and so forth. But I'm talking about, since this kind of tower is going to actually affect the community, sounds like you're not taking that into consideration at all.
No, we're here tonight to live in the community. We're here tonight to understand what people think about the location, what people think about how it looks,
The messages
and
go away.
so forth. So we're here to listen. I mean, we're here to understand what people have. If people have constructive ideas on moving the tower to another location on the site or off the site, but the bottom line is this. Verizon, we listen to Verizon. They have very specific criteria as to where they want service to be provided. This is the location Verizon has told us is optimal for their network, and that's, I mean, I wish I could answer, I apologize that I can't
When
go
you
more
heard
into
that,
more
that
detail.
made you feel
That's
good?
really all I've got. That's all
You
I've
said
got.
it's an optimal from a technological and
So these guys are making a capital investment. They have to get a return on their investment because they're spending a lot of resources making a long-term commitment, and so it's really in their ballpark to determine what happens. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
And my second question, this is a question to the school board. We've been hearing a lot about RF radiation and all this. We have an expert here that's actually here, I guess was brought in here to try to give us some sort of better feelings about the technology. But I'm a scientist, I'm a biologist. Is the school board going to be considered, through the process of consideration, are they going to be consulting with pediatricians, doctors, and members of the health community, instead of just the engineers that are going to tell you this is what's the best situation?
We've looked over all the credible studies, and the board has looked over those studies. And basically all the information we have read,
And what
we feel
qualifications does the board have?
there are
Tell
not
the
any
truth.
concerns.
Oh,
One of the things with the RF energy is
no, I can't be on the truth.
and the other thing, part of what we require is with any of these sites, they're required to do an annual RF study. It's not just outside, it's also inside. They have done it for every site, and they go out with an independent person that is going out there and taking readings to see what is the RF energy. We actually, just to give you an example, and
Show your hands,
again,
anybody in here who buys that, raise your hand.
so with the RF energy, what we found actually, I'm going to take Broadneck High School, for example. It's our oldest tower, again, three years old. They went out there and did a study. It's located behind the stadium. And they actually went out and did measurements. As they went across the field, again, it was way below the FCC requirements. But as they got actually inside, all the way across the other side of the school, inside by the science lab, the RF energy was higher. And it was because of the Wi-Fi routers in the school. They were picking up the RF energy inside the school was higher inside than it was outside, right next to the tower. And I'm just telling you, that was the findings that they found. And again, I look at these reports, we get them annually for each tower. If they are not in compliance, then they have to go back in and remedy that situation. Right now, the levels are so low, we have not seen any issues to date. And again, it's only been 4 years, but that's what we've been looking at.
I understand that you're going to take this information and you're getting that from a lot of engineers, but I urge you to talk to people in the medical community about these things before you make your decision.
I am from the medical community. I spent 25 years
what's your name?
I'm Janet Peavy, but I'm helping him with this. We spent 25 years running cancer centers. I was also part of the congressional delegation that was sent to represent the United States of America to Ukraine to ascertain the healthcare needs for the people of Ukraine on the 20th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident. So don't tell me that there's nothing to be worried about. This is all cumulative. I've been involved, I've sat on pharmaceutical boards across this country. I have a major background in this. The studies that you're talking about, they are taking place and testing these things for 7 to 10 hours a day, which is the exposure of the children and staff that are going to be sitting in that school. Okay, so forget your numbers. This takes 10 to 20 years to develop, and sadly, your son developed early. So we don't want it here. And we can bring as much scientific data and cover up the ones that you have. But I am coming to you as a professional and as someone who represented this country on these issues. So you're wrong. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out tonight.
I have, is it Mel? Maggie. So I have Maggie Rowe or Rao, but I also have someone named, is it Mel Gesfeld?
Mike.
My name is Maggie.
Mike.
And you were asking about an option to put in cell towers someplace other than the elementary school. 15 years ago, I sat on the board of this building, and we have always wanted a cell tower. We have 4 acres that back on to 8 acres of county property. And I doubt that we are not any different than where the cell towers proposed now, except we're not near children. There is an option. It means the school board doesn't get money, but it means our children are a little safer. And I would urge everybody to contact the Shady Side Community Center. You had to contact them to rent this building. You should contact them and see why we couldn't make a deal and have the tower here, if being in Shady Side is so important. Common sense note. It seems to me the Board of Education, the principal, and the PTA president of Shady Side dropped the ball. The woman who said it earlier was right. Send a note home with every child in their backpack to let them know when there are going to be meetings. You cannot rely on robocalls. You can't rely on people going on the Board of Education website or studies. That's just courtesy. Thank you.
My name is Thea Pivot. I am the president of Shady Side Elementary PTO.
As they say, thank you for your service.
So I'm not really sure exactly what I want to say. However, I guess there's 2 things. So forgive me while I say this. Because my point is to people in this room, not look towards you. Thank you. So as far as I'm concerned, for me personally, Milestone did their due diligence in terms of informing me as the president of the PTO. As the president of the PTO. I was present at that meeting, I can't recall what date it was, in which it was informed to myself and Mr. Casey that this was going to take place. Not this meeting, but that Anne Arundel County Public Schools, as far as I understand it, had a contract, forgive me if I get this a little bit wrong, with Milestone Communications, and that the plan would be to use that property, per se. I was extremely transparent when questions were asked on the Shady Side Elementary PTO Facebook page. Somebody was concerned that information wasn't being shared. I contacted forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think your name, Matt. I think I called Matt that same day that questions were being asked in regards to a sneaky meeting taking place over the summer. I'm a parent of a child at Shady Side Elementary. I check my email, I listen to the robocalls, I consider myself to be informed. I'm not here to argue with anybody on these matters. But if my name is going to be brought into this, then I'm going to defend how I have shared this information. I'm not trying to be secretive in any way, and neither is the principal of Shady Side Elementary. With that said, the information, I answered those questions. I got the information from Matt. We put it on the PTO Facebook page, which is only a page that is available for families that have a child enrolled at Shady Side Elementary. So as far as the PTO is concerned, I feel as though we've shared our information as best it was provided to us, and that I felt confident that this meeting simply was to gather information for individuals to have the opportunity to share, to answer questions, to have their information, to have their questions answered, which I feel as though they've been tonight. I still don't feel as though I have enough information as a parent and as a resident of Shady Side to make an informed decision. You all may each have your own opinions, and we're all entitled to our own opinion. As the president of the PTO, this is the final thing I'm going to say, and I know it's past 9 o'clock and everyone wants to go home. I've been the president for several years now, and this is my final year of being president. And because my term is up, okay? For all parents that have children at Shady Side Elementary that are still present in this room, I would love to see your support and your passion. As passionate as you are about this tonight, as passionate as you are, and you care about your children, please come to a PTO meeting.
And our final speaker or questioner is Michael.
Cell phone working good?
The same signal that we have right now. His cell came from PayPal. Same signal with the power center. I'm asking the cell tower, phone. I'm asking the cell tower that he's called to send the signal to the phone. We can't hear you. Say right now. Because coming here, I won't get. We can't hear you.
So, Michael, are you asking the question?
So everybody's cell phone here is receiving the same frequency, they'll be coming in the tower. None of you are throwing your phone away right now. The kids are right here in the school. At home, they do. Here, they do.
Michael, go ahead.
Shut the fuck up!
Hey. Let's keep it quiet. Let's ask the last question. No profanity. It's Michael.
Please, you got the floor, sir.
How old does the school last? What's the life expectancy of a school? Life expectancy of a school. You build a school, like a bridge.
We actually have the oldest school in the state of Maryland. The Annapolis Elementary School was built in 1896 and it is still in the same building. So they last a very long time. Eastport Elementary, 1935, High School Glen Burnie, 1933, Southern Middle School, 1933, this was 1970. We're just adding an addition. As everybody knows, Shady Side has been on the radar for many years.
Why hasn't it been renovated?
Why hasn't it? Because limited funds. Shady Side is one of the last schools in our system, elementary school, to have an open space classroom enclosure project.
I was told because it's built for veterans, that's to get bigger.
No, it has to do with capacity. Part of my job is planning. We look at the demographics as far as population changes. and we were basically projecting a uptick in the enrollment, and therefore we're adding 4 classrooms and also doing the open space.
I saw trees be built across at the school about a year ago. 2 years ago, I saw trees be built.
Folks, it's too loud in the back, please.
I saw trees be built at the school. Why were they just torn down to put up a cell tower? Our tax dollars paid for trees to be built in the school field. Planted, sorry. Planted.
Are you referring to the trees that 5th grade planted like along the parking lot?
No, not in the parking lot. No, ma'am. Where all the Mexicans are at, please.
Typically with any project, at least especially a cell tower, if there is any type of memorial tree or something that's been planted,
it wasn't
I can make it
memorial.
wrong. But this site is located back in the woods, I don't think it was.
Right, and then the helicopter landing, right? I was one of those people that got medevaced out of here because I drowned when I was 3. The only reason I lived was because of that helicopter landing at Shady Side. Right, there's that one. How large is your yard? How large is your yard? Your yard? It's pretty fucking big, right? It's pretty big.
Michael, would you please, I'm sorry, if you have
half an acre? Damn, I was going to ask, why didn't you build it on your yard? You can get that one. Was it even zoned for that area? Was the tower zoned for that area?
For Shady Side?
Yes.
Zoned for Shady Side? The question is the site zoned to that area? I'd like to ask our zoning expert to come forward. Can you answer that question, please? I'm sorry, I'm not the zoning expert. It's fine.
The zoning of property in this area is R1 residential per the county code. Towers are permitted in the R1 district as conditional use provided they meet certain criteria in the code, including ruling out alternative commercial properties within 2,500 feet. So that's something that is part of our application to the county. We go through extensive layers of review process, through zoning, through engineering. All of this is reviewed through the county before we can get approvals to break
In Edgewater, they built it behind the morgue.
I do want to point out, and I think maybe we can let us put a map on the website if everybody is then mentioning the wetlands and the critical areas. Part of the research that Milestone and all of the engineers and zoning managers at the beginning of this process have to do is to figure out what the best spot for this tower is environmentally, engineering-wise, and the spot that Milestone picked is in a pocket that is just outside of the critical area and it is outside of wetlands.
1,500 feet back, there's a property for sale for 15 acres, I believe, for $300,000.
Listen, before you go, I just want to thank you for your passion as well. For those of you who sat through, who were caring about the information that was passed over to you, who want to get more information, I appreciate your concern and your desire to know more. I have the sign-up sheets here in the front. If you would like to put your email address on it, you'll get a copy of the information that was discussed tonight. Thank you all very much for coming this evening.
And if you'd like to be part of the resistance, sign in over here. Thank you.